If you're a beauty brand owner and you want to get to the real of what it takes to make it in this beauty industry and sell your products like hotcakes, then you're going to want to stay tuned in. If you're not ready for that, I suggest you leave because I'm not holding anything back. We're pushing past the noise, moving past all the fluff, and getting to the real deal. This is a safe space to make it happen, and I am excited to dive in with you. Welcome to Sellin Beauty, the brand new podcast that uncovers the secrets to turning your beauty brand from hidden gem to hot commodity. I'm your host, Fatima Barnes, often hailed as the beauty brand whisperer. And if you're here, guess what? This ain't gonna be one of those cookie cutter shows with all the fluff and fancy foo-foo stuff. No, we're gonna talk about the real, what it really takes to not just survive in this beauty industry, let me be real, but to thrive, because surviving is just not enough. If you my people, it's not enough. Most importantly, if you're a beauty brand owner looking to get off that revenue roller coaster and start generating consistent sales online from your dream add to cart customers, you're in the right place. And so each episode, we're going to dive into proven strategies, insider information, amazing guests, and actionable steps to help you sell your beauty products. But we are not just tackling the strategies. We are talking about so many other things that are also important that people don't talk about, like the mental aspects, the other things, right? Those things that impact your revenue more than you know. And so the reason I love the way I do what I do, because this has nothing to do with the usual advice I see about needing large audiences, getting influencers, and all of those things to sell, right? If you have a small micro audience, this is perfect for you. The things that I teach will work. And this podcast is for you. It doesn't matter your audience size. So I can't wait, because week after week, I am going to shatter everything you thought you knew about marketing your beauty brand. And I can't wait to get into this. So let's pop off season 1 of Selling Beauty. "96% of all businesses fail within 10 years, with 80% failing within the first 2 years. But even the 4% that make it's not necessarily that they're successful. It just means that they've survived." And this is a quote that I read in a book, and I honestly don't remember the book, but I remember writing it down, okay? But if I were to break those stats down even further by women, and especially minority-owned businesses, or just look at the stats of a beauty brand owner in general, the numbers would be even more staggering. And so while the beauty industry can be extremely lucrative, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I ain't got to tell you that. You're in there, and it's constantly growing. But it's also considered extremely risky, especially to investors, due to the high fail rates and just the type of experience really that the beauty industry brings with certain customers and things like that. And so this is my why as to why I do what I do and why I've decided to create this podcast, right? I see many beauty brand owners closing their doors down or just surviving after years when they have so much potential. Okay. And so I even closed my own beauty brand doors down back in 2018, 2019. And I'm going to break down what led to that, because this is really important for you to understand as you are on your journey with your own beauty brand, and how I've sort of gotten led into really getting to the point that I am today. So I was surviving at just one point in my beauty brand, right? And let me be clear, those that are surviving, this has nothing to do with not everybody who is surviving is just surviving because they are lazy or they want to give up. But usually the people I see surviving are the most go-getter, like they're the ones that's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep pushing through, which is how I was. But the reason why they're surviving just has to do with just lack of understanding of what they should be doing to better thrive in the beauty industry. So when I started, like most new brands, I had that initial spark of support, of course, from my network, right? You launch, everybody's like, oh, yay, I'll support you, have a business, whatever. But then it hit that plateau because eventually your network just kind of runs out, or it's just like not everybody's going to come back and buy because they were just supporting in the first place. And so they were just supporting to support. And so even if they weren't really interested, while I was grateful, that wasn't enough to sustain me, right? Because those are not the people who are usually repeat customers. So then I realized that I had to expand beyond just my network. Like most people, I did exactly what most beauty brand owners do today. I got the brand ambassadors, influencers, and content creators. I paid for promo. Hell, I was even on the Shade Room. I ran ads. I started churning out content like a mad woman. Okay. I did it all. And I started to see some traction. I did, right? And sales started coming in, but I noticed it was up and down. It was like a roller coaster, both financially and emotionally, hell, if I'm being honest. And that's where many of you guys are. It's not that you're completely stagnant and you haven't made money in forever. It's not that you don't make money at all or that you just hate everything that you do and it sucks. It's just that you don't really know because you're on this roller coaster emotionally and everything else. It's all a lot. So then I started doing like most people do. I started attending events and pop-up shops, and I really noticed that that helped me fill in those revenue gaps. But it was draining, packing up your stuff, setting up your booth and relying on that, even though because it was easier to sell in person, it just wasn't going to be sustainable for me if I wanted to grow further in the long haul. I mean, I was working way too hard and it just felt like there had to be a better way. So fast forward my last year and a half in business, I finally figured it out. And I started noticing sales kept pouring in online from strangers consistently. People I didn't know. Every single day I was waking up, Shopify, cha-ching, 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 right? And everything turned around. And that was because I was using the concepts that I was using with my corporate clients in sales and marketing and e-com and all of these things. I was working with these multi-million-dollar brands. And so I figured out a way of how to make it work for me and apply for me, okay? Because I noticed several patterns that were there. And that was a timeless pattern, right? No matter what was going on in the market, I noticed some things. And I, of course, had degrees in marketing and business and all of this. And so I got together and I said, how can I make this work for me as a beauty brand owner? Because I'm going to be honest, there were not a lot of people who owned beauty brands who had services specifically for beauty brand owners on how to grow and this and that. Right? There were people that could help, but I was paying attention. I was asking my clients questions. I was looking at the strategies that I was working with them on and helping them grow their businesses by millions of dollars. And I was like, I gotta make it fit. And so the frameworks that I teach today are ultimately what made the orders consistently pour in for me, right? And with less time. But hell, by the time I figured it out, I'm gonna be honest, I lost my passion for it. And honestly, bad business partnership, no shade, no tea, played a part in my burnout as well, but that's a story for another day. But I got to where I was just tired. And I really ultimately, from day one, always wanted to consult other people, but I hadn't owned a business yet, so it didn't make sense. So my passion was really more into the teaching anyway. But the point that I'm making is this. I had this amazing brand and people loved it, right? But the difference between the amazing brand that I had prior to versus the brand that I had once I figured this out was very different. Okay. I had what I call leaky buckets. Okay. We're going to talk about more about the leaky bucket a little bit later. But in the business that I had to fill that before I ever saw success. I had, I had it to where I was selling out to total strangers and I wasn't cheap. I actually was able to even go up on my prices. And because at one point I went down on my prices thinking I needed to just, okay, let me just go down because everybody's complaining. Let me get everybody else. And I realized that I was just talking to the wrong people. And so most of the businesses that fail, it's that they rarely stick it out long enough to discover the holes in their bucket, right? And that's why mentorship and things like that are a shortcut. But I guarantee you that the businesses that fall within that statistic wouldn't have failed if they would have filled their leaky buckets. And the same, wouldn't have, if I hadn't have figured it out, I would have been in the same position, okay? So like many others, they didn't learn The people whose businesses fail because of this, they didn't learn to master selling products consistently, and especially online, because it's not different, but it is different, right? There's some nuances, and we'll talk about this in later episodes and go a little bit deeper. But it's harder for people to do it, especially online, without burning themselves out. And cash flow, of course, plays a huge part in why a lot of these people are closing down their doors, or again, barely surviving, or are on this revenue roller coaster. And the big part of that is it's really that the cash flow and all of these things that you are seeing is really the symptom of the real problem. Okay. And let's face it, many do well in person at events with word of mouth, but it is not going to sustain you in your business and beyond, at least online for sure, or you're not going to see the potential that you could see in 2024 and beyond without a successful online strategy. E-commerce and online beauty sales are just non-negotiable. I read a stat that like by 2026, it was going to quadruple in most retailers. Over a third of the sales that retailers get, that normal retailers we've been seeing for years, that it's most of their sales are starting to come online. Okay. So online sales and mastering online sales is a non-negotiable. Okay. So I ask you listening, do you have a leaky bucket? Because we're going to talk about that leaky bucket and what I call the exposure lie. Okay. The exposure lie is the lies you've been told about needing exposure. Okay. Lots of it, more as the solutions to your problems. Okay. And so you heard me, I had all kind of exposures. When I tell you, I even had celebrities, the whole nine when I had my beauty brand. It was a hair extension company. But ultimately, it was not what solved my problem. What solved my problem was freeing myself of the exposure lie and filling my leaky bucket. So before we get more into this, let's hear a brief message from our partners. Hey there, beauty brand owners. Fatima Barnes here, the Beauty Brand Whisperer. Are you ready to take your marketing strategy to the next level? Well, I'm thrilled because listen, honey, I am officially a Klaviyo partner, and Klaviyo powers smarter digital relationships, allowing you to create personalized customer experiences across email, SMS, mobile push, and more. With real-time data, and I love the data, honey, and AI-driven insights, you can connect seamlessly with your customers and grow faster. I recommend Klaviyo to all my clients, and it has been a game changer in their success, and it pairs so perfectly with the strategies that I teach them that gets them selling like hotcakes. They've seen incredible growth, increased sales, and stronger customer engagement. Join over 146,000 brands worldwide who trust Klaviyo. Use my affiliate link in the show notes and get started with Klaviyo today to transform your marketing strategy and the way you do business. Now, I felt like this was the perfect topic to start with because it's something that many beauty brand owners deal with. You are not alone. This is really what I wanted to make sure that I do, especially in this first episode, is validate you and let you know that you're not alone. This is very common, and get you some clarity around what happens to most beauty brand owners who really want to grasp selling their beauty products, selling beauty, right? And so, because I get it, this causes unnecessary stress sometimes in your business, right? Being an entrepreneur is stressful. I don't care how anybody spins it. And so this is why I call it a lie, because it's rarely the answer. And so if this is your first time hearing me, I know you might be wondering, like, why should I listen to her? So I'm going to give you, I know I just told you a little bit about my experiences as a beauty brand owner, but I do want to give you guys a little bit more insight into my background, especially in this first episode, because I know a lot of people are completely new to me and who I am. And so, as my name is Fatima Barnes, also again, your host, but I am a business strategist specializing in helping beauty brand owners. However, I've helped hundreds of brands in over 30 plus industries between my corporate experience and my consulting and coaching career. I've helped generate over $5.7 million in additional revenue for these businesses. And I've spent the last 15 years studying businesses with multiple degrees. And I've just totally immersed myself in business over the years in different sectors, the whole nine. I've owned multiple businesses, including my own beauty brand. And I just enjoy most teaching others to do exactly what I did in my company as the owner and founder of CEO Charm School, formerly known as the Ambition Academy. Okay. So I left my corporate job and created a framework and strategy that has worked and that works for many beauty brand owners like yourself. My clients report wins such as quitting their jobs, laptop-free vacations, shorter hours plus more income, paying down student loans, selling out of products online after literal months, some even years of trying. And sometimes for the most part, we don't really realize how important it is, but that clarity and direction that you've never had before is a win, okay? And selling to their absolute dream customers and expanding their businesses outside of just their local markets and in-person sales. And so the best part is that they do this. My specialty and what makes me love what I do and how I do it is that I specialize in showing you how to do this with small audiences. Like the audience size doesn't matter. My processes is not a bunch of BS and fluff that's focused on cookie cutter solutions, because I don't want you falling for things that keep you seeing the highest potential that you have. So I'm not going to sit here, and my strategies are not like, here's a bunch of hashtags and here's how you grow your audience and then hopefully people buy and create a little content. Let me give you a content calendar. That is not what I do. And so I've dedicated my career to helping beauty brand owners get past this and learn to sell their products like hotcakes, and especially online. Okay. I use timeless principles. So no matter what's trending, etc., this is rooted in buyer psychology and consumer behavior. And data is a huge pillar, huge focal point of what I do and why it works so well. Okay, so let's keep it moving and get into this now that those who have been introduced to me are now introduced to me. So the exposure lie is so important to debunk because it's a common belief, and many people fall for this trap. And you do the same things that I did, like investing in brand ambassadors. And now you put it on your brand ambassadors, like, my brand ambassadors aren't bringing me sales, or, then you start putting pressure on them. Like, I don't see them posting, and you're getting upset and you're frustrated. And then you're just hoping and praying maybe you go viral, and then you start paying for influencers. And before you know it, you're up $1,800 paying for this influencer, and you get sales, but then again, it falls, right? And so then you start saying, I'm going to build up my followers. And then you do all of these follow trains. And then you're in every random Facebook group or doing every random follow train just to grow, because you think that audience growth equals business growth, and they are not the same. And so I get it. Then you start to fill in those gaps with those in-person sales because you need that to keep you afloat, but you know that there has to be a better way. And so you're doing all of these things because you think that's what's going to fill your bucket. Remember when I talked about the leaky bucket? That's what we're really about to dive into now. But first, let me just say, though, that I admire you more than you know for that. If you're my people, I know you're not taking this like with defeat. You're not laying down taking this. I know you have that attitude that you're willing to do what's necessary. You're willing to not give up. You're willing to really pour into this and really get to the root of what's wrong, because your brand is dope. I mean, this is why you've invested in a lot of the solutions that weren't the best solutions that at the time for you, because you're just wanting to change lives with your products. You know that your brand is amazing and can do that, and you just want to get your products in the right hands to change more lives. You want a successful brand that stands the test of time and allows you freedom of time and financial freedom, most importantly, because many of you have aspirations, if you're not already doing this full time, of doing this full time. And for those who are doing this full time and they are like worried month after month because they don't have that consistency of knowing what it's going to look like. This is why I get it, right? You want to put your kids through college or whatever it is your heart desire. Take your kids to Disneyland, whatever, okay? So, however, you know something is off and that there has to be a better way, and that is what you've been looking for, and that is why you're here. So, if you're here, I know this is you, right? But when the only thing that you're focused on is exposure, you do start to hire all the wrong people, the wrong mentors, the wrong coaches. You start to buy the wrong courses. You start hiring people to outsource for things that you're not necessarily ready for. Like you don't get a social media manager when you don't have the right foundation to outsource that. So then you start to get them because you want them to grow your following, but they can only do so much without these things that are causing the leaks in your bucket. And so you expect these things to lead to sales. And the thing is, it's not that there's anything wrong sometimes with the coaches, the course, or the mentor, or the people that you've hired. It's just that you've been solving the symptoms and not the problem. So I want you to imagine, okay? I want you to imagine that you have a car and you go from mechanic to mechanic, and each one is telling you something different. They all saying this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. Like, Lord, if you ever had a raggedy car before, I had a raggedy car in college. So listen, let me tell you, I get this story, okay? So you have this raggedy car. I'm calling it raggedy. It's not raggedy. It gets the job done, okay? Your business ain't raggedy, but I'm using this as an example, okay? So you take this car to this mechanic, to that mechanic, to this mechanic. And before you know it, they say, well, it's your spark plugs. And they fix your spark plugs and there's still something wrong. The engine light is still on. So then this person says, you need a new filter. And then they change the filter and then your engine light is still on and there's still the problem there. Then somebody else says, you need a new carburetor. I don't even know what that is, but I'm just throwing it out there. Well, do you check your carburetor and then you realize like, okay, the issue is still there. Okay. And the problem still isn't resolved. And you're like, my check engine light is still on. Okay. So then one mechanic comes along. We all know that one mechanic that we love for this because you finally go to this one mechanic that says, I'm going to put this on a diagnostic machine. I'm going to really take a look at what's going on and I'm going to rule out some things and I'm going to pinpoint because I've been doing this. It's usually that mechanic that's been doing it for like ever, right? That mechanic comes along and says, I can tell you right now exactly what the problem is and what your issue is. And then they pinpoint it and they say, you need a new whatever, right? They fix it and boom, problem solved, right? And so you think about how much money you spent getting your spark plugs, getting air filters and all of this stuff that you didn't need when how great it felt was to get that clarity from that one mechanic that says, nah, this is what's it, boo. I'm telling you. And then they fix it. What? Okay. And so this is 99% of the clients that I have, including myself, have been in this situation where we just want to find that yellow brick road, that person that says like, hey, this is your problem. And I know exactly what we need to do to fix it. Okay. So look at me as the mechanic with this podcast week after week, because that is exactly what I am here to do. Right. So exposure in large audiences are your symptoms. That is the spark plugs. That is all of these different things. They are just vanity metrics. And for those who are asking what a vanity metric is, it's a metric that looks good, but is not a real indicator of your business's success, i.e. followers, celebrities, promotions, all of those things going viral. All of those things are just added. They should be additions to what already works. They should not be seen as the solution. So now you know about the exposure lie. Let's talk about like the leaky buckets, as you've heard me say multiple times throughout, right? The reason why I refer to it as that is because this is really the source of where most of your issues are coming in, okay? So I want you to imagine you have a bucket and you wanted to fill that bucket with water and make it overflow, okay? I'm talking about you wanted to just pour and overflow. But no matter how much you pour, the water just won't ever fill to the top. It slowly goes down, sometimes faster than others, right? And no matter how much you pour, it just doesn't ever get there. It just doesn't ever fill up. Okay. Does that sound familiar? Because the bucket represents your business and your all of the things that represent your business. And the water is all of the exposure and all of the things that you're doing to fill it. Okay. The holes in the bucket are the issues that we need to address. So no matter how much you pour, the water is not going to stay forever, right? Because you got holes, you got leaky buckets we need to get through. Okay. So throughout this podcast, after each episode after episode, we're just going to be diving into the holes. We're going to be filling the holes in your bucket and ensuring that your bucket overflows. But the first one that I want to introduce to you, your 3 biggest holes in your bucket. We'll dive into one of the biggest ones out of all 3. And then we're going to take it a step further next week, diving even further. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of give you that heads up so you know what to expect. Okay. So if you ever played darts, right, there is a hole right there in the middle that you are usually shooting for. And what do you call that when you get that? That is your bullseye, okay? That is what you're aiming for. So I've built my framework around that because ultimately your audience and the people who are the customers, the people who are you investing in wanting to buy from you, that's your bullseye, right? That is the right people. It's about the right person. And I call that Goldmine Groups. Okay. We'll go a little bit further into that. Then the second piece of that is the actual dart that you have. And on that dart that you're using to throw and hit a bullseye, that represents getting the right message and the right time and place. Okay. And so ultimately, your only goal in business, like these are the 3 elements. This is what I've built my framework around. This is really timeless because most people don't understand how important this is. But your goal is to get the right message in front of the right person at the right time and place. Okay. The problem is most people just don't dig deep enough into understanding their audience at a deep enough level. So that's where they really miss the mark. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'll give you a story about how powerful understanding the right time and place can be. One day I was going to the mall. I said, you know what? I'm in here. I'm just going to get my ring because when you're married, they make you go every so often, like every 6 months, you got to go get your ring checked out and all that good stuff. So I said, I'm going to go get my ring checked out. And I'm focused. I'm not buying it. I'm not stopping at nothing. I ain't doing it. I'm not letting no vendor stop me because I am that kind of person that they kind of do be getting me, they kind of come over here and then I feel bad sometimes and then I buy. So I was like, no, I'm focused today. I'm just going in here, going into the store and I'm getting what I need and I'm getting out. So what I did was I was walking and I was focused. Everybody stop over here, ma'am. Stop over there, ma'am. Stop. I got a flat iron for you. Nope. I got phone cases. Nope. Try my perfume. Nope. I'm just walking like I said I was going to do. But before I knew it, I heard someone say, try my sea moss lemonade. Now, to you, that means probably absolutely nothing, right? But to me, in that moment, she did not know when she said that I was like, I want to incorporate more sea moss into my diet, but I really do not like the texture of it. I didn't even I think I had a powder before. I just wasn't a fan of it. And I'm a texture person. I was like, but if I could really incorporate it another way, I would just do that. So when she said she had a solution that included my favorite thing ever in the world to drink, which is lemonade, it is my guilty pleasure, and that it was sea moss in it, she stopped me in my tracks. And I went over there and I bought 10 bottles, okay? At $10 a piece. Let me just be very clear. They were expensive, but I didn't care. Why? Because she literally helped me figure out a solution that I had been looking for, even though I wasn't looking for it in that moment, right? I was trying to get out of the mall and go, but she captured my attention all because That was a solution that I had been looking for, and I happened to be at the right time and place, and she happened to say the right thing. If you're listening, do you understand where I'm going with this? Okay. Ultimately, it's about getting the right message in front of the right person at the right time and place. Had that not worked out perfectly, she wouldn't have gotten $100 sale out of me. But because I literally was in that space and it was the right combination of those three things, I made a purchase. And so, how do you make sure that that happens for you and your business online? See, a lot of people have a hard time standing out online because we don't know what to say to capture that attention, right? It's noisy. Much like when I was walking through the mall and the vendors were there and the vendors was asking me for this and that, your potential customers are distracted just the same. So you have to be very specific and clear and know exactly what their sea moss lemonade is to make them pay attention to you, to notice you, right? And you need to know those people who are like me, that who are the people that's looking for the sea moss lemonade in your audience. And so that is where it really starts at the Goldmine Group, understanding the audience at the core and understanding that within that audience, I know what are their triggers and what is going to make them ultimately buy. So the biggest hole in your bucket is you do not know your Goldmine Group. If you are here and you resonated with any of the things that I said, you are more than likely not as in tune with your audience as you think that you are. You do not know what their sea moss lemonade is, and you have not really gotten enough clear enough on that to where your content, aka when she simply just said, are you looking for sea moss lemonade? Basically, you don't know what that is to say. And so you just look at what someone else is doing and you think that what works for them is going to work for you, not understanding that that person is looking for the flat iron, but you're trying to sell them sea moss, right? So I turned down the person who was looking for, who wanted me to buy a flat iron, and I went to the person. So you just gotta know who the right person is for your audience. And that is something so super specific for you. It's a combination of all of these different things, those elements that make you, that make your brand special, but who you really want to serve, who's the best people for you to serve, who are your dream customers. And it's about getting way clearer and more specific than thinking that just because someone can benefit from what you have to offer, that something is for them. And so that is why I love to talk about this one big hole of the leaky bucket. Ultimately, the biggest three leaky buckets that you have, the biggest one being not knowing the right people. The second piece is not knowing the content around that to say to those people, not really understanding that content is such a not a one size fits all solution. There's frameworks within it and all of that, but ultimately the way that you present it to your Goldmine Group is what makes the difference. The other piece of that is the right time and place. So if you're here, the right time and place, the right message, and the right people, the right person being the biggest aspect of it, are the holes in your bucket. If you are not able to fill your bucket to where it overflows and overflows abundantly with all of the efforts that you're already doing, then you are missing something in these three areas, and they're just pouring out. So you've got to identify the Goldmine Group. Those are the people who are in your audience that are not only your dream customers, but because they're ready to buy, but they are the best person that can get the results and get the transformation from the products that you sell. They are the people who will spend money. They are the people who will buy your solutions at the end of the day, but also not just buy with money. They are the ones that you truly want to serve. The biggest mistake I see people make is thinking that they have no control over the people that they serve and that they just need to take what they got and just stick with this wide demographic of people and just kind of hope they attract everybody within that. And that is just not the case. You have so much more control over who you attract and who your dream customers are. You need to define that though. And that is what Goldmine Groups are about. It's finding that gold mine, that golden group of people that you have chosen and that you have said, this is who I'm actively going to seek out because they are the best people that I can serve. You have control over that. And then there's the piece of it where the content piece of it, the messaging piece, the right message, right? Many people struggle in this area, and content is such a hot spot. And so I can't wait to dive into content in another episode. But the reason why it's such a hot spot is because you have not identified. So if you're having an issue with content, that is a hole in your bucket, then it's more than likely because you are not really in tune with your audience like you think that you are. And then the third piece of that is your marketing systems around that. The right time and place is really about how you build your systems around these people. And if you're not very clear on that, you can have the best marketing system in the world. You can have all your marketing on point. You can have top ads. You can have a top ad agency. You can have all the systems and funnels, and you got your email marketing and all of these different things in place. But if you have not mastered who the right people that's for and how to speak to them in a way that they want to buy, it doesn't matter. But at the same token, it's the same thing that if you don't have that, but you do know who the right people are, but you don't have a way of getting that message in front of them when they need to see it 24/7, when they need to buy, and depending on where they're at in their journey, you're missing out on so much. But also at the same token, even if you know how to create amazing, beautiful content, if you don't know who you are creating that content for deep enough where you really know what triggers them to buy, and if you don't have that together and you don't have the right content showing at the right time throughout your system, you are not going to reach the highest, fullest potential in your business. So this is the leaky holes in your bucket. So I want you to ask yourself and really, really think about, do I have a leaky bucket? Am I overworking myself? Am I going hard? Am I paying the wrong mechanics and solving the wrong issues? Because if you're doing that, your marketing efforts and all the things that you're doing is not going to really ever fill your bucket up to your fullest potential. So that is why I have decided to create Sellin Beauty. And I am excited to dive in next week, going a lot deeper into the Goldmine Group. And I cannot wait to share some ways with you that you can do that, because we need to start filling those holes in your bucket. You're like way too dope of a beauty brand to do so. So as I close out this first episode, I would love to thank you, first of all, for tuning in to the first episode of Sellin Beauty. I'm so excited to see where this goes. Please share this episode with your business bestie or another beauty brand owner that you feel could benefit from this. Share your feedback with me. Leave a review. I would love to hear it. If you ever want to email your feedback or anything, you can email me at info@CEO Charm School. You can follow me on social media on Facebook at Fatima Asan Barnes and on Instagram at Fatima Barnes _. And all details will be in the show notes. If you would love for me to help you with this more specifically, if you recognize that you have a leaky bucket and you have been looking for someone to help you and help you figure this out in your business, I would love to do that. If all you got to do is check the show notes, I have a couple of ways that we can work together. One being my signature program, Sell Like Hotcakes. It is a group program and I am absolutely obsessed with it because we dive into all of this in the deep nitty gritty, right? I have only gotten to the tip of the iceberg today. Also, there's a $7 workshop. It's only $7 for a limited time for the first 50 people, called Ready to Buy Beauty. And it gets a little bit deeper into the Goldmine Groups. Check it out. It's a 2-hour workshop. You will learn a lot. And I would just love to see you on the other side. I would love to help you implement these things further. But if not, keep staying in tune because I will be back next week and I cannot wait to dive into this. So thank you again for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you next week.